There were days when I felt like I had hit a wall, days when everything seemed heavy and enthusiasm felt like a distant memory. I know what it's like to feel stuck in a rut, wondering if you'll ever get that spark back. I've had my fair share of struggles, where every morning felt like a chore, and I couldn't seem to find a way to break free from the negativity that clouded my mind. But let me tell you, I've learned something powerful along the way. Change is possible, even when it feels impossible. When life hits hard, it's easy to feel like we're losing control. I've been there, staring at the chaos, wondering how to even begin picking up the pieces. But what I discovered in the midst of my struggles were simple truths. Truths that were right there all along, just waiting to be uncovered. I didn't need a dramatic shift or a sudden miracle. I needed a new way of thinking, a new way of responding to life's challenges. That's when I turned to Stoicism, and let me tell you, it completely changed how I viewed the world. You see, Stoicism isn't just some ancient philosophy that sounds good in theory. It's a living, breathing way of life that I began to apply to my own struggles. And trust me, it made all the difference. Stoicism taught me to look at my problems differently, not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. It helped me realize that I was the one in control of how I responded to life's ups and downs. And once I understood that, everything changed. The beauty of Stoicism is that it gives you the tools to not only survive tough times, but to thrive through them. I've learned how to approach each day with intention, how to find strength in the face of adversity, and how to rediscover excitement in the small, everyday moments. I'm not saying it was easy, and I'm definitely not saying I had it all figured out overnight. But what I've found is that with the right mindset, even the toughest moments can become stepping stones toward a life full of meaning and joy. If you've ever felt like you've lost your enthusiasm or wondered if you'll ever feel truly alive again, I get it. But I also know that you have the power to turn things around. There's no need to wait for some magical moment to feel better. You can start right now by shifting how you look at life and what you focus on. It's not about waiting for things to change outside of you. It's about changing how you see them and how you react. So if you're feeling drained, uncertain, or just plain stuck, I want you to know that there's hope. You don't need to stay in that place of overwhelm. I'm here to tell you, from personal experience, that with a few simple shifts you can find your way back to the enthusiasm and joy you thought were lost. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about embracing what's real and using it to fuel your journey forward. And I'll show you exactly how to do that. Ready to begin? Let's dive in. I've been at a point where life felt like a never-ending struggle, where everything around me seemed heavy, and I couldn't find a way to see the light. It's like when you're walking through a storm, soaked to the bone, and every step feels like an uphill battle. I felt this way, and I'm sure many of you have too. But here's what I discovered. Even in the darkest moments, there's always something to be grateful for. It's easy to get trapped in the mindset that we need something more to feel fulfilled. I've been guilty of thinking that if only I had this, or if only things were different, I could finally be happy. But what I didn't realize then was that I had been overlooking the countless blessings that were already surrounding me. I didn't need to wait for something to change in my life. I just needed to start seeing the beauty that was already there, right in front of me. When I first started practicing gratitude, it didn't feel natural. I won't lie and say it was an instant shift. It was a small, steady change over time. But what I found was that by acknowledging even the smallest things I was thankful for, I started to feel differently. I began to appreciate the quiet moments, the things I had taken for granted, and slowly but surely, the storm in my mind started to calm. It wasn't about pretending everything was perfect, but about shifting my focus. Instead of focusing on what was missing or what was going wrong, I began to train myself to focus on the good. Now, I know what you might be thinking. How can I be grateful when everything seems to be falling apart? Trust me, I've asked myself that same question. It's tough. But what I realized is that gratitude doesn't require perfection. In fact, it's in the imperfections that gratitude truly thrives. If you wait for your life to be flawless, you'll be waiting forever. But if you start looking for the little things, like a warm cup of coffee, a friendly smile from a stranger, or even the ability to simply breathe, you begin to see that life is full of blessings, no matter how small they may seem. At first, it felt like a challenge, but as I stuck with it, I began to notice something remarkable. Gratitude started to change the way I saw the world. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by everything I didn't have, I felt uplifted by everything I did. Gratitude gave me a new lens to look through. It wasn't about ignoring my struggles. It was about acknowledging them while also embracing the things that were going right. Something else that I learned along the way was that gratitude doesn't just come from the big moments. Sure, we're grateful for the obvious milestones, new jobs, new relationships, big accomplishments. But what I discovered is that the real magic happens in the everyday moments. The things we often overlook can be the most powerful sources of joy. I started to feel gratitude for simple things like the sound of birds singing in the morning, the warmth of sunlight through my window, or the peace of an evening walk. These moments became the foundation for a life filled with more joy, even in the midst of challenges. But there was more. As I continued my gratitude practice, I began to realize how much of it was tied to presence. When I was fully present in the moment, without rushing to the next thing or worrying about the past, I was able to appreciate things on a deeper level. I stopped getting lost in the chaos of life and started to focus on the here and now. I learned that gratitude and presence are like two sides of the same coin. When you're truly present, you see life for what it is, and in that, you find an endless source of things to be thankful for. And here's where it really got interesting for me. The more I practiced gratitude, the more I noticed the good in others. Instead of focusing on their flaws or what they were doing wrong, I started to appreciate their kindness, their laughter, the little things that made them unique. It wasn't just about me anymore. Gratitude extended beyond myself and began to touch the people around me. It was like a ripple effect, where my own attitude shifted, and so did my interactions with others. Gratitude brings you closer to those around you because you start to notice what they bring into your life, rather than focusing on what they might be lacking. Another important lesson I learned was that gratitude isn't just about being thankful for the good stuff. It's also about being thankful for the struggles. It might sound crazy, but hear me out. The challenges we face in life often teach us the most valuable lessons. When I look back at some of my toughest moments, I can now see how they shaped me into who I am today. Without the pain, the frustration, and the heartbreak, I wouldn't have learned resilience, patience, or the importance of letting go. Gratitude for the hard times isn't about dismissing the pain. It's about recognizing that they've helped you grow. In those moments, I learned how strong I really was. I also started to realize how much of gratitude is a choice. It's not always easy, and I know there are days when it feels impossible to feel thankful. But the more I made the choice to focus on the good, the more natural it became. It's like any habit. You don't just wake up one day and suddenly become a grateful person. It's something you practice. And the more you practice, the more your brain starts to rewire itself to see the positive rather than the negative. Over time, it becomes second nature, and life feels lighter even when it's tough. There's something incredibly powerful about the shift in energy that comes with gratitude. It's like going from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance. When you focus on what you don't have, it feels like there's never enough. But when you focus on what you do have, you start to see that you're already rich in ways you never even realized. Gratitude brings abundance, not necessarily in material wealth, but in happiness, peace, and appreciation for what's already here. One of the most beautiful things about gratitude is that it's free. It doesn't require anything from you but a shift in mindset. You don't need to buy anything or wait for a perfect moment to start practicing it. All you need is the willingness to take a moment each day to acknowledge the blessings in your life, no matter how small they may seem. And in that simple act, you begin to see your life in a completely new light. I'm not saying gratitude will make everything perfect or take away all of life's challenges. Life will still have its ups and downs, and you'll still face difficult moments. But with gratitude, you'll be able to weather those storms with a sense of peace and joy, knowing that even in the hardest times, there's always something to be thankful for. So, here's the challenge I want to give you. Start your own gratitude practice today. It doesn't have to be big or complicated. Just start small. Take a few minutes every day to reflect on what you're thankful for. Keep a journal, or simply take a moment to breathe and appreciate the life you have. It may seem simple, but trust me, it's life-changing. Once you start, you'll see just how much joy you've been overlooking. And in time, you'll rediscover that enthusiasm for life that once seemed out of reach. As I continued to embrace gratitude and focused on appreciating the simple moments in life, I began to realize something even deeper. True peace wasn't just about being thankful for the good things. It was also about releasing my grip on the things I couldn't control. The more I reflected on the power of gratitude, the clearer it became that the next step was letting go of all the things I had tried to manage and hold on to. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight, but learning to let go of what I couldn't control turned out to be one of the most freeing and empowering steps I took in my journey. If you're like I was, constantly worrying, overthinking, and trying to control the uncontrollable, you might know exactly how draining it can be. I used to think that if I could just control everything around me, I'd be happy. I tried to predict outcomes, shape every situation, and micromanage everything in my life. And I'll be honest, it left me feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and anxious. It was like trying to hold on to water. It just slipped through my fingers no matter how tightly I grasped. But here's what I've learned. The power comes from letting go, not from holding on tighter. When I first started letting go of the need to control every single outcome, it was a challenge. The unknown was terrifying. I felt like I was relinquishing my safety net, my sense of security. But slowly, I realized that by letting go of that need to control everything, I actually began to feel more in control of my own peace. I realized that I could choose how I reacted, how I showed up, and how I handled the challenges I faced, without the burden of constantly trying to steer everything. The shift in mindset was profound. When I focused on releasing control, I didn't feel helpless or passive. I felt empowered. Instead of stressing about what others were doing or how situations would unfold, I started focusing on what I could control: my actions, my perspective, and my internal responses. This shift allowed me to find clarity where once there was chaos. I wasn't trying to change everything around me anymore. I was simply accepting what was and responding in a way that felt calm, grounded, and intentional. What struck me most was the incredible relief that came with letting go. I stopped carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I could finally breathe again. I stopped worrying about every possible scenario that could go wrong and began to trust that life would unfold as it was meant to. This didn't mean I stopped caring or stopped trying. It meant I no longer felt the need to force things to go my way. I understood that I couldn't control every person, every outcome, or every situation, but I could control my attitude and reaction. As I practiced letting go, I found that life didn't fall apart without my constant management. In fact, it felt like things were flowing more smoothly. I realized that the more I tried to control external circumstances, the more stressed I became. But when I accepted that there were things beyond my influence and focused on what I could control, the sense of peace that followed was incredible. I learned to stop fighting against the current and, instead, to move with it. It was like I had been swimming upstream for so long, only to discover that the current was actually carrying me exactly where I needed to go. In releasing control, I also learned to trust myself and my ability to navigate whatever life threw my way. I didn't need to have all the answers. I didn't need to know how everything would turn out. Instead, I focused on being present and making the best choices I could in the moment. It was incredibly freeing to let go of the pressure to always be in charge of every detail. Another thing I noticed was that by letting go of the need to control, I was able to appreciate the beauty of life more fully. When I was so wrapped up in managing everything, I missed out on the simple joys that were always there. Once I started releasing that pressure, I could feel more deeply, experience more fully, and enjoy what life was offering me at that very moment. I realized that life doesn't need to be perfect for it to be beautiful. One of the most powerful aspects of letting go is the emotional freedom it provides. For so long, I let my emotions be tied to things I couldn't control, other people's actions, how things would turn out, or whether or not everything lined up perfectly. But when I made the conscious decision to let go of those things, I also made the decision to reclaim control over how I felt. I wasn't letting external circumstances dictate my emotions anymore. I could choose to remain calm in the face of challenges instead of reacting impulsively to things I couldn't change. This doesn't mean I've mastered it. Letting go is a practice, a daily choice. It's something I continue to remind myself of. I still face situations that make me want to grasp for control, to worry about what could go wrong, or to predict outcomes. But each time I consciously let go, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. I feel empowered, knowing that I can handle whatever comes my way, as long as I remain calm, focused, and grounded. The more I embraced the practice of letting go, the more I saw how much unnecessary stress I had been carrying. It was like lifting a weight off my chest, one I didn't even realize I had been dragging around for so long. I started focusing on what I could change: my mindset, my response to challenges, my ability to learn and grow from every experience. By letting go of the rest, I made space for a life that felt lighter, freer, and more aligned with my true self. And you know what? The world didn't fall apart when I let go. In fact, things started to flow more naturally. I didn't have to force outcomes or exhaust myself with unnecessary worry. Life unfolded, and I reacted with grace, knowing that I was capable of handling whatever came next. That was the real power of letting go. It wasn't about abandoning responsibility. It was about choosing to focus on what I could control and releasing the rest. If you're feeling overwhelmed or weighed down by the need to control everything, I want you to know that you don't have to carry that burden anymore. You don't need to manage every outcome or plan every step. You don't need to control other people or stress over things that are outside your power. The only thing you need to control is your response, your mindset, and your ability to stay present in the moment. When you do that, you'll find the peace, clarity, and freedom that come with letting go. It's not about giving up. It's about embracing what you can control and releasing what you can't. Trust me, once you let go, you'll discover a new way of living, one that's filled with more joy, more peace, and more enthusiasm for life. As I began to let go of the need for control, something unexpected happened. I started to see the challenges I once viewed as roadblocks in a completely different light. Rather than feeling defeated by setbacks, I began to realize that every obstacle was actually an opportunity in disguise. I learned that obstacles don't have to be something we fight against. They can be powerful tools for growth if we allow them to be. This mindset shift changed everything for me. It shifted my perspective from frustration to resilience, and suddenly I was no longer paralyzed by difficulties. I was driven by them. When I look back at the toughest moments of my life, I see them through a different lens now. Instead of wishing they hadn't happened or trying to escape from them, I realized that each challenge was essential to my growth. Resilience is born in adversity. The struggles I once resented became the very things that shaped me into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable of handling whatever life threw my way. This is the power of embracing challenges and seeing them as opportunities. It wasn't always this way. There was a time when I'd look at a setback and feel overwhelmed by it. I'd get frustrated and wonder why life always seemed to present me with problems I couldn't solve. But that was before I discovered Stoicism and the profound wisdom of turning obstacles into opportunities. Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus taught that difficulties aren't just part of life. They are a fundamental part of becoming stronger. They believed that every challenge was a chance to practice virtues like patience, resilience, and fortitude. Once I started applying this philosophy, something incredible happened. I stopped viewing obstacles as enemies and started seeing them as teachers. The key shift for me was reframing my setbacks. In the past, when things didn't go as planned, I would get frustrated, angry, or discouraged. But as I started practicing Stoic philosophy, I learned that every setback was an opportunity to learn. Instead of asking myself, "Why is this happening to me?" I began asking, "What can I learn from this situation?" It was a simple shift in mindset, but it completely transformed the way I face challenges. For example, when I experienced failure or rejection, I used to take it personally. I would feel like it was a reflection of my worth. But with time, I realized that failure was not a verdict on who I was as a person. It was simply feedback. Failure was showing me what didn't work so that I could learn, adapt, and try again with more knowledge and wisdom. Once I started reframing setbacks like this, I found that they no longer had the power to defeat me. Instead, they became stepping stones that led to a deeper understanding of myself and the world around me. One of the most powerful lessons I learned from Stoicism was accepting the things I cannot change. I'm not talking about passivity or resignation. I'm talking about the freedom that comes from recognizing that some things are simply beyond our control. Whether it's someone else's actions, the outcome of a situation, or the timing of events, there are always factors outside of our influence. But instead of feeling powerless, I learned to focus on the one thing I could control: how I responded. In accepting the things I could not change, I freed myself from unnecessary stress and frustration. I stopped wasting energy on trying to control the uncontrollable and focused instead on what I could control: my mindset, my actions, and my resilience. This shift gave me a deeper sense of inner strength. The more I embraced challenges as opportunities, the more I realized that I had the capacity to handle difficult situations. I wasn't fragile or weak. I was capable of overcoming adversity. This realization didn't come overnight, and it didn't mean I never struggled, but it meant that when life did throw me a curveball, I didn't crumble. Instead, I stood firm, knowing that I had the tools to face whatever came my way. Stoicism also taught me the importance of accepting hardship with grace. Instead of resenting challenges or trying to avoid them, I started to see them as essential parts of my journey. The Stoics believed that our character is tested and strengthened in times of difficulty, and I began to understand that it wasn't the challenges themselves that defined me. It was how I responded to them. When things didn't go as planned, I learned to meet them with patience, humility, and a willingness to grow. Every difficulty became an opportunity to practice these virtues, and in doing so, I found that I became more resilient with each passing day. Perhaps the most powerful realization I had was that every setback contains within it the seeds of success. What I mean by this is that every time life knocked me down, I had a choice. I could stay down, or I could rise up, stronger than before. The obstacles I faced were not roadblocks, but opportunities to evolve, to learn, to adapt, and to emerge better than I was before. I realized that the struggles I faced were not meant to break me. They were meant to build me. Take a moment to think about the challenges you're facing right now. Instead of feeling overwhelmed or defeated, try reframing them. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger? It's not about pretending everything is fine or glossing over the difficulties. It's about recognizing that within every challenge is the potential for growth. And once you start seeing it this way, you'll begin to feel a shift in your perspective. You'll no longer feel like a victim of circumstance. You'll feel empowered to take control of your response and turn any obstacle into an opportunity for growth. I can tell you from experience that this shift in mindset isn't just theoretical, it's real. The more I applied this philosophy, the more resilient I became. I stopped letting life's challenges define me, and I started using them as tools for personal development. And the beauty of it is, the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Each challenge becomes an opportunity, each setback a lesson, and each obstacle a stepping stone toward becoming the best version of yourself. Now, this doesn't mean that embracing challenges is easy. There will still be times when life feels heavy or when things don't go as planned. But what I've learned is that resilience isn't about avoiding difficulties. It's about how we respond to them. It's about choosing to grow through adversity rather than letting it break us. The more I practiced this, the more I realized that I could face any obstacle with confidence, knowing that it was simply a chance to build strength, character, and wisdom. As you face your own challenges, I encourage you to embrace them, not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. The Stoics believed that our greatest strength lies in our ability to rise above difficulties, to meet adversity with a calm mind and an open heart. And the more you practice this, the more you'll find that you not only endure life's struggles, you come out of them stronger, wiser, and more enthusiastic about the journey ahead. Resilience is not just a response to adversity. It is the foundation for living a life full of meaning, purpose, and strength. As I began to see obstacles as opportunities and embraced resilience in the face of adversity, something else became clear to me. No matter how strong we become or how well we handle challenges, life loses its richness if we're constantly stuck in the past or consumed by worries about the future. What truly brings life into focus is the ability to fully live in the present moment, appreciating it for what it is, without letting regrets or fears pull us away from the here and now. This realization wasn't just enlightening, it was life-changing. I used to spend so much of my time replaying past mistakes or worrying about what might go wrong in the future. My mind would wander to what I should have done differently or what I feared was waiting around the corner. It was exhausting. I wasn't really living. I was stuck in a loop of regret and anxiety. Then I came across a simple but profound truth from Stoicism. The present is all we truly have. The past is gone, the future hasn't arrived, and the only thing within our reach is this very moment. At first, this idea felt overwhelming. How could I possibly stop worrying about what's ahead or dwelling on the past? But the more I practiced being present, the more I realized how much I had been missing. The small moments I used to overlook, like the warmth of sunlight, the taste of my favorite tea, or the sound of laughter, suddenly felt vibrant and full of life. These weren't just trivial details. They were the essence of what made life beautiful. Living in the present isn't about ignoring the past or neglecting the future. It's about choosing to give your attention to what's happening right now, rather than letting your mind drift into places that don't serve you. I started asking myself simple questions throughout the day, like, what do I hear right now? What do I see? What do I feel? These questions grounded me. They pulled me out of my racing thoughts and brought me back to the present moment, where life was unfolding. One of the biggest challenges I faced when trying to live in the present was letting go of regrets. I had a tendency to beat myself up over things I couldn't change, replaying moments in my head as if I could rewrite the past. But the more I leaned into Stoic wisdom, the more I understood that regret was a waste of energy. The past cannot be undone, but it can teach us. Once I shifted my perspective, regret transformed into gratitude for the lessons I had learned. Instead of feeling weighed down by past mistakes, I saw them as stepping stones that brought me to where I was. Worry about the future was another hurdle. I would get caught up in what-if scenarios, imagining the worst-case outcomes of things I couldn't even control. But the more I practiced mindfulness, the more I realized how much time I was losing to these fears. I started to ask myself, is this fear helping me right now? Most of the time, the answer was no. I learned to focus on what I could do in the moment to prepare for the future, rather than getting lost in anxiety about what might never happen. Being present also taught me the value of slowing down. Life moves fast, and it's easy to get swept up in the rush of responsibilities, goals, and to-do lists. I used to think that productivity meant cramming as much as possible into every day, but what I realized is that real productivity and joy comes from being fully engaged in whatever you're doing. When I started focusing on one task at a time, whether it was a conversation, a project, or even a meal, I found that I did things with more care and intention. I wasn't just going through the motions anymore. I was living with purpose. Another powerful lesson I learned about living in the present is that it deepens your relationships. When I stopped letting my mind wander to past conflicts or future worries during conversations, I was able to truly connect with the people around me. I listened more deeply, laughed more freely, and shared moments that felt authentic and meaningful. These connections reminded me that life isn't just about achieving goals or checking off boxes. It's about the relationships we build and the love we share in the moment. One of the most surprising things about being present was how it changed the way I viewed time. Before, time always felt like it was slipping away, like I never had enough of it. But when I started living in the moment, time felt fuller. An hour spent fully present felt more satisfying than an entire day spent distracted or preoccupied. I realized that it wasn't about how much time I had, it was about how I used it. By giving my full attention to each moment, I found a richness in life that I hadn't experienced before. The practice of being present also brought a sense of calm to my life. When I focused on the now, I wasn't carrying the weight of the past or the burden of the future. I could just be. This calmness didn't mean life was without challenges, but it meant I could face those challenges from a place of clarity and strength. The present moment became my anchor, a steady place to return to no matter what was happening around me. Another beautiful thing about living in the present is that it makes you more aware of the little things that bring joy. I started to notice how good it felt to take a deep breath, to watch the way light danced on the walls, or to feel the texture of the ground beneath my feet. These moments, small as they were, added up to a deep sense of gratitude for life itself. I stopped waiting for big dramatic moments to feel happy and started appreciating the joy that was already around me. Living in the present isn't always easy. There are still times when my mind tries to pull me into the past or the future, but I've learned to notice when it happens and gently bring myself back to the now. It's a practice, one that takes time and patience, but the rewards are worth it. When you live in the moment, life feels more vivid, more meaningful, and more exciting. If you're struggling to live in the present, start small. Take a moment to notice your surroundings, to feel your breath, or to appreciate something simple. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. And as you begin to live more fully in the present, you'll find that the worries of the past and future start to fade. What's left is the beauty of the now, a place where life truly happens. As I learned to live in the present, I noticed something profound. It wasn't just about being mindful in the moment, but also about having a deeper sense of why I was living each day. Presence alone wasn't enough. I needed to know that my actions were connected to something bigger than myself. That's when I started exploring the idea of purpose. And let me tell you, finding purpose isn't just about grand gestures or world-changing missions. It's about aligning your daily actions with the values that matter most to you. There were times in my life when I felt lost, like I was just going through the motions without any real direction. I would wake up, go about my day, and fall asleep feeling like nothing meaningful had been accomplished. It was as though I was doing everything and nothing at the same time. But when I started asking myself deeper questions, what truly matters to me? What kind of person do I want to be? What values do I want to guide my life? Things began to shift. Suddenly, my days had more focus, and my actions carried a sense of purpose that had been missing before. Finding strength in purpose doesn't mean you need to have every detail of your life figured out. I used to think that to have purpose, I needed some huge, overarching mission. But the truth is, purpose starts small. It starts with understanding your core values, the things that matter most to you, and finding ways to live those values in your daily actions. For me, one of my values is kindness. When I started focusing on simple acts of kindness throughout my day, I felt a renewed sense of meaning. It wasn't about changing the world all at once. It was about letting my values guide my choices, one moment at a time. When you align your actions with your values, something incredible happens. You begin to feel a sense of inner harmony. I've experienced moments where my actions didn't align with my values, and those were the times I felt most disconnected from myself. For example, when I acted out of fear or tried to please others at the expense of my own integrity, I felt an emptiness that lingered long after. But when I started living in a way that honored my true self, I felt stronger and more at peace. It's like your actions and your inner self finally sync up, and that alignment creates a powerful sense of purpose. Another thing I've learned is that purpose isn't static. It evolves as we grow and change. There were times when I thought I'd found my purpose, only to realize later that it needed to shift. And that's okay. Purpose isn't a destination, it's a journey. What matters is staying connected to your values and being willing to adapt your actions as you learn more about yourself and the world around you. Living with purpose doesn't mean life becomes easy or free of challenges. In fact, purpose often demands resilience. But what I've found is that when you're rooted in purpose, those challenges feel less overwhelming. They become part of the journey rather than obstacles in the way. For instance, when I faced difficult decisions or setbacks, I would ask myself, does this align with my values? Is this moving me closer to the life I want to create? These questions became my compass, guiding me through uncertainty and helping me make choices that felt true to who I was. One of the most powerful aspects of purpose is the way it brings clarity to your priorities. Before I started living with purpose, I would get caught up in distractions and spend time on things that didn't really matter. But when I began aligning my actions with my values, I became more intentional. I started saying no to things that didn't serve my purpose, and yes to the things that did. This shift wasn't always easy. Letting go of distractions and old habits can be uncomfortable, but it was absolutely worth it. Purpose helps you focus on what truly matters, and that focus brings a sense of fulfillment that distractions can never provide. I also discovered that purpose isn't just about yourself. It's about how you contribute to the world around you. When I began thinking about how my actions could positively impact others, my sense of purpose deepened. Whether it was offering support to a friend, sharing knowledge, or simply being present for someone who needed a listening ear, these moments of connection brought a profound sense of joy and meaning to my life. Purpose isn't selfish. It's about aligning your actions with your values in a way that creates ripples of positivity in the world. What surprised me most about living with purpose was the energy it gave me. Before, when I was living without clear direction, I often felt drained and unmotivated. But once I started aligning my actions with my values, I noticed a shift. I wasn't just going through the motions anymore. I was living with intention, and that intention brought a newfound enthusiasm to my days. Even tasks that once felt mundane took on a new significance, because they were tied to something bigger than myself. Living with purpose also taught me the importance of reflection. I began taking time to reflect on my actions and ask myself if they were truly aligned with my values. This practice wasn't about perfection. It was about staying honest with myself. There were times when I realized I had strayed from my values, but instead of beating myself up, I used those moments as opportunities to realign. Purpose isn't about getting it right all the time. It's about being willing to course correct when you need to. Another lesson I've learned is that purpose is deeply personal. It's not about what society expects from you or what others think you should do. It's about what feels authentic to you. I used to get caught up in trying to meet external expectations, but that only left me feeling empty. When I let go of those expectations and focused on my own values, I found a sense of freedom and joy that I hadn't experienced before. Purpose comes from within, and when you honor that, you unlock a sense of fulfillment that no one else can give you. One of the most beautiful things about purpose is how it connects you to the present moment. When your actions are aligned with your values, you're not constantly chasing the next thing or regretting the past. You're fully engaged in what you're doing right now because it matters to you. Purpose anchors you in the now, and that presence brings a richness to life that's hard to describe but impossible to ignore. If you're feeling lost or unsure of your direction, start by asking yourself what truly matters to you. What values do you want to guide your life? Once you identify those values, look for small ways to align your actions with them. Purpose doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It starts with simple, intentional choices. And as you begin to live with purpose, you'll find that life feels more meaningful, more joyful, and more exciting. You'll wake up each day knowing that your actions matter, not just to you, but to the world around you. And that sense of purpose will carry you through even the toughest moments, giving you the strength to keep moving forward. As I look back on everything I've shared with you today, I can't help but feel grateful for the journey that brought me here. Each of these lessons, gratitude, letting go, turning obstacles into opportunities, living in the present, and finding strength in purpose, didn't just help me rediscover my enthusiasm for life. They completely transformed how I see the world and my place in it. These lessons weren't just about surviving tough times. They were about thriving, growing, and learning to embrace life with all its ups and downs. What I want you to take away from this is simple. You are stronger than you think, and life is richer than it seems when you shift your mindset. Whether it's finding joy in the little things, learning to let go of what you can't control, or living with purpose, you have the power to change your perspective and, in doing so, change your life. These lessons aren't just concepts. They're tools you can use every single day to build a life that feels meaningful, exciting, and true to who you are. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these lessons resonated with you the most? Have you tried any of these ideas before, or are you planning to start now? Leave a comment below. I read every single one, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts and experiences. Your journey inspires me as much as I hope mine has inspired you. And before you go, if you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel so we can keep growing and learning together. There's so much more to explore, and I'd love for you to be part of this incredible journey. Let's build a community of resilience, purpose, and unstoppable enthusiasm for life. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.